Listen to the people, listen to humanity, listen to the parrot, Parrot TV, Parrot TV, Parrot TV, Parrot TV, Parrot TV, Parrot. Listen to the people, listen to humanity, listen to the parrot, Parrot TV, Parrot TV, Parrot TV, Parrot TV, Parrot TV. Listen to the people, listen to humanity, listen to the parrot, Parrot TV.
Hi, I am Dustin Pickering from Parrot Literary Corner. You know me, your noble and honest host, and I've got exciting news for you. Last anthology, Series 1, The Literary Parrot, did such a great job. We want to continue to provide this community service to our viewers and to our contributors to the program. So please get up and get a copy immediately. You know, if you're in this book, you want to get a copy. If you're not in the book, you want to get a copy and see what we're doing. You want to be excited with us. We want you on this program, and we hope to see you sometime soon on The Literary Parrot. You have to get your hands on this copy. It's amazing. It's an absolutely beautiful anthology meant just for you. Our past guests have been invited back to contribute yet again to this Series 2. We do this quarterly anthology. We will be doing this after our 200 episode milestone. As of this last quarter, we reached 200 episodes, and past that, get up and get a copy immediately. This is the only TV show on earth for creative writers, and our guests are amazing. They're also community activists building from the ground up. This program is for everybody out there who is a creative mind. Order several copies if you can and donate to local libraries. Give them to your friends, cousins, fans, supporters, anybody that you think loves poetry. And it's not just poetry in this book. Remember, this is creative mind. So we have prose, fiction, short stories, essays, artwork, anything you can think of, artistically creative, photographs. Everything in this book is packed. It is packed. It is just absolutely packed. If you want to get your hands on it now,
listen to the people, listen to humanity, listen to the parrot, Parrot TV, Parrot TV.
Hey, welcome to New York Parrot's Literary Corner. I'm Dustin Pickering, your noble and honest host. This is episode number 227. Today we have Magus Magnus, whose work sources poetry and the poetic as central both to the extremes of interiority and thought and philosophy, and exteriority, performance and deed. Born in Los Angeles in 1967, Magnus's privileged upbringing in Southern California did him no favors, but brought him lasting distrust of the materialistic veneer, and by his teen years, charges of malicious mischief from the Beverly Hills cops. He lives only for love and to drink from the enchanted spring. On the front burner, the Killing Joke, hybrid poetry, philosophy, cultural criticism forthcoming from the Mute Canary. Books include The Re-Echoes, Idols for a Bare Stage, Heraclidian Pride, and Verb Sap, as well as a Kindle ebook, The Free Spirit. Magnus's Poets Theater work has been presented around the country, including a must-see 5-star Best of the Fringe rated run at the Capitol Fringe Festival. His work appears in numerous journals and has been anthologized in multiple editions of Pearson Longman's university-level textbook, Literature. Thanks for joining us today, Magus. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you very much for having me here at the New York Parrot.
Excellent. We want to thank Carlo Porcelli for connecting us today. So it's wonderful to talk with you. Thanks to him, he put us in touch. So tell us a little bit about...
Yes, I appreciate Carlo very much for that. Carlo and Rosalie, very much for connecting me with a lot of things. So.
Yeah, they're a great group of people there. They also do our foreign policy review program with them. So that's a lot of fun. So tell us a little bit about your, when you say in your bio, the extremes of interiority and exteriority are part of your, your poetics. How do you combine those? What ways do you combine them?
So I think that's a great question. I appreciate it. And I've given it a lot of thought over the years. And the question of poetics is one thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think overall my aesthetics and poetics are essentializing and prioritizing what is felt as the poetic, whether we're looking at drama, whether we're looking at even novels and especially poems. There's an arc that leads to, I think, the poetic experience. And I've written about that in and of itself, but I think I prioritize that in what I'm after, both as a reader or as an experiencer of art and as a writer. So the poetic has its own arc, and it
Mm-hmm.
it gives its, and this is a claim, not only does it give perhaps a beautiful feeling, as sometimes people are after with poetry, I
Mm-hmm.
think it gives knowledge. I think there's that moment when something comes together, whether it's an idea or a poem or a moment in a dramatic work, where it's that aha moment, it's that epiphany.
So, in your opinion, what sort of poets that do accomplish that best, and from your reading experience?
I think I think that throughout history, I feel like the achievement of when we say the muses have happened or poetry has happened, I think that is the poetic. But the first thing I want to differentiate from is the goal for sensation or even the dramatic arc under plays. So if we're going back to ancient history, which I often do, Aeschylus as a poet, the poetic arc and the poetic moment, even when we're going to tragedy. So it's that moment that everything comes together in knowledge. And of course, the poets that love the muses like Blake, and I would say now there's a poet in LA, Will Alexander. There are plenty of poets who do this, but I feel like for my own poetics, we're identifying just even the idea of the poetics itself as being as being a primary aesthetic experience.
This is kind of an interesting question, and I always wondered about this. Do you think that when we say the muse or the muses, do you think this is a real being, or is this an abstraction, a metaphor for some kind of energy or something that we don't have a real explanation for?
I I much I go with the latter when we talk about things like energy, when we talk about mythology. I don't think it's going to be useful to try to put ourselves into the old mythologies as being something to revive. So like let's really believe in the muses. But when you say words like energy, or I would even say realities, that there
Hmm.
is such a thing as the poetic experience. There is such a thing as the sublime experience, that these are realities we can really work for and achieve or really appreciate when they happen at different times in history and in our contemporary times as well. So a lot of poets, a lot of writers, and like to go back to the idea of what is the American myth? What is going to be the global myth? I don't know that we need to go back to the myth. I don't know that we have to say the muses are real goddesses, but we can understand what was the energy behind that and make it real in that way. I,
Hmm.
I I think there's an insistence here on something is real. I definitely will
Right.
say that
Right.
something is real, but we don't have to simply revive an ancient myth.
Right. So it's not like a person out there somewhere in the sky just bestowing the arts upon people. There's like a flow of some kind coming through, vibrating throughout all of all of the existence we experience, and that sometimes it just kind of presents itself as a kind of artistic temperament, or maybe even is embodied in a person. Would you say that could be possible?
Yes, I don't want to go into I don't want to go into questionable ground, but that I think it's again just that idea that the poetic is real, the idea that love is real. So
Right.
you can have people in life be your muse, and and stay conscientious about what that might mean without objectifying someone. But there are
Hmm.
definitely muses that are people who inspire us, people who are there for us in our art. And that I definitely hope that if someone felt like they were a poet's muse, that they would feel complimented if they were treated as a muse the correct way.
Right.
And so in that way, they're concrete. There's concrete muses for poets and for writers and artists. But that idea of the goddess, the idea of the mythology, it's just not so much to make the myth real, but to really, like you're saying. And I think what you're talking about, flow, and one of the things that I do think is an actual practice is that sense of being a channel, being a conduit for certain energies, getting into the creative state that allows that to happen. And it's one of the most pleasurable states. It's been described as the flow state itself. And that's part of creation. So
I think it's sometimes that there's like a general world spirit. I'm almost like Hegelian in that sense. Like there's a world spirit that just has a diverse number of ways it presents itself. And some people it's artistic. Some people are maybe business minded, or there's like a mentation to life. I'm kind of an idealist in the philosophical sense. So I noticed that you have a book, Heraclitean Pride. What is that concern? Is that philosophical, or how do you that title? It just sounds like a very philosophical book.
It is, and thank you for mentioning my books and things like that. Heraclitean Pride came out about 10 years ago, and I've been over for longer than that, for 25 years. I love Heraclitus. I'm deeply involved in trying to understand the words that came out from thousands and thousands of years ago. So Heraclitus himself is very famous for some phrases that have come down to us. Even expect the unexpected is a Heraclitean phrase from one of his fragments. A very famous philosophical idea is you can't step into the same river twice. Right. And I think that probably was the start. Once I heard that when I was much younger, that just stuck with me as something to ponder and to what idea of the world does that give you? Character is destiny is the other one that is that is like a popular phrase by now. And right. That's pretty significant to think about in terms of one's own life.
Speaking of rivers, Richard Lemeroux says, for me, I imagine a river flowing and I am able to access that stream of consciousness. When we were discussing the muse earlier, that was his comment. So thank you so much, Richard, for joining us on the program and listening in. So kind of give me some ideas. How does Heraclitus, his ideas or his thoughts work into your collection, Heraclitean Pride? Okay, so this was quite a big conceit of mine, that all we have left of Heraclitus are fragments. And that meant the major, when I learned, and that years after studying Heraclitus, something really entered my brain that, whoa, he actually had written just one book. He was famous in antiquity for his one book, and it was called On Nature or the Universe. Basically, Heraclitus says it all. And what we have are people quoting him. We have just fragments from that one book that's lost. And so the fragments have been enumerated and they're more or less intact as phrases or sentences. And so from the fragments, we just have intimations of what was this one book that Heraclitus wrote. So I was very excited to go from a completely creative point of view without what I studied a lot of the academic insights into all of the fragments. But this whole book, Heraclitean Pride, is a very subjective, very poetic approach to putting all the fragments together and finding out everything that was said about his life in ancient times. So everything that was known to antiquity about Heraclitus' life, putting them all together and sort of in a playful way, recreating the one book of Heraclitus. So that's what it's a poetic work. It has poetry and poetic prose, but it puts together all the fragments, analyzes them subjectively, and is an interpretation of Heraclitus's book On Nature or the Universe. So I would imagine that'll be a lot of speculation involved in that as well. So you had to use a lot of imagination.
Yes, but it was imagination prompted by uh, lots of writings about lots of writings that I read, lots of thoughts, how people interpreted Heraclitus, and
Hmm.
in that way, uh, a lot of stimulus to my own thoughts, but then ultimately my own decision making about what I really thought and reaching Heraclitus in many ways. I think that that takes, I think imagination
Hmm.
is,
Yeah.
what is that process where we could reach other times or other writers? How do we have access to them? I think
Right.
imagination is a huge part of that.
Mhm.
But that idea
The
that
bridge.
I don't know if I'd be capable of it now, but that as a younger man, I was saying to myself, I think I get Heraclitus. I think I feel it, and so I'm going to do this, and
So how
it's
long
been
did it
really
take you?
interesting.
You think over including the research and the writing of the book? How long do you think that took you to put that book together?
So originally, I think over time living with Heraclitus for a while, and yes, and we have the comment that I'm reading down there, which is that you can't meet the same person twice, you can't read the same person twice. One of the things that I came out, especially when the book came out, I really talked a lot when I was doing a lot of lectures on the book, and it received academic. I was able to go to universities and talk about Heraclitus in classics departments and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So, and it gets cited to this day. So it's
Wow.
pretty rigorous, but
Uh-huh.
it is a creative and poetic approach.
Right.
And one thing that would emerge out of this idea was that if you took a class for 3 months on Heraclitus, you're going to know the pre-Socratics, you're going to know Heraclitus in a particular way. But if something caught you so much the way it did for me that you're going to live with Heraclitus for many years, and I still learn new things now, and I find it very valuable. And that idea of living with it gives you I think there's something about what knowledge is. It's not just the logic of being instructed about being able to speak rationally
Hmm.
about a fragment. It's
Hmm.
that idea of like, oh, I have a sense and a new way of looking at the world, a new way of understanding the world that comes of being able to be responsive because it inspires you. So it's a two-way street. If I weren't inspired by what I'm reading and getting a sense of, wow, someone was thinking this way 2,500 years ago, nothing would be happening for me in this way. But that I that idea of living with it is number one as a major thing. And then in the end, I wrote the manuscript at one point, and probably when I wrote the manuscript, it was a burst of creativity. That's going back quite a while, a huge burst of creativity, probably less than a year to make the manuscript.
Mm.
It took probably a number of years after that before I found a publisher, which was
Hmm.
Furniture Press Books, and one of my Christoph Casamasma publishes many of my works. So over time, and I've been really appreciative of his appreciation of what I do. So that came later, and that was once I knew it was coming out, I had more research to do. I didn't finalize the manuscript until I did further research,
Hmm.
and that involved also really making sure that I had my own translation of the fragments, making sure I wasn't accidentally just using other translations and other interpretations. So I did a lot of study for that. And that actually,
Learned Greek for that, or did you
now I am not a
agree?
classicist, and I am not at all someone who's well trained in Greek, but
Hmm.
I was trained in the Greek. I did a lot of research and a lot of work to take the basics of understanding ancient Greek and the ancient Greek alphabet and being
Hmm.
able to, I can pour over fragments and I can pour over specific works till I feel facile with them.
I want to
So
thank Carlo for
that was a
saying.
much longer process.
Right, that's
Nope.
definitely a very tedious effort, and it's a lot for. I mean, you must have been just rigorously obsessed, with understanding the fragments. Thank you so much, Carlo, for saying Magus brings a serious intelligence and sensitivity to poetry rarely seen today. Thank you so much,
Thank,
Carlo, for participating
thank
today
you,
in our
Carl.
conversation. Yeah, it's wonderful. It's always great to be acknowledged and respected and said something nice about you. I mean, that's how do you feel when people appraise your work and they actually are? Have you ever run across someone that just seems to really get what you're trying to say, and it just how does that feel for you?
That's a really kind question. That, yeah, I really do want to express that I feel like in the end, those experiences, and I think Carlo's been part of that as well. Those experiences really keep you going. Basically, they're like, if I am not one of those people who've ever felt that it was actually, I can take editing and all of that quite a lot, and I really appreciate that. But that idea that people often tell writers, and especially in workshops and then later in the editing process, you're too close to it, you don't know, you let's get a much more critical eye. All that like comes with the territory, right? But I think there are plenty of types of writers. I think of this myself, like on some level I can say I kind of know what I'm doing. There might be more things that happen in there than I know, and that's the subconscious at work. But there's a lot of stuff I know that's in some of my work. And when you feel like someone is able to acknowledge all of that, and they're responding to that, oh, you do know what I'm doing here, and I get that, that is really that's the audience, that's the reader that every writer needs. That's the reader that activates the work. That's a sort of even a Heideggerian concept, which I embrace, like that there needs to be activation from the other end that happens because you found a reader who knows what you're trying to do, what you're attempting, and on all those different levels. So
it's an interesting way of expressing that. I totally agree that there's a communication between writer and reader, and when the reader actually grasps and understands what's being said, or may even be so perceptive as to see things that the writer did not as necessarily intend originally, but then you put in the work somehow, like you said, subconsciously, and a reader may be more kind of prone to those energies or those little articulations that you missed that you didn't know you even put in there.
And coming back around, I think that's right in the sense that the reader adds something, especially there's stuff that you missed too, or that things that came out that wasn't there. And there are times I'll read things from the past and say, oh, that's really interesting. But even just again, going back, the pure acknowledgement is also encouraging. It feels really good, not just to feel like, oh, they get it, but if people actually do appreciate it and come out and let you know, and that they have that appreciation, it is very sustaining. And on the one hand, I think it's an important rule for writers to be able to not just play to their contemporaries and not just play for praise. It's really important to be able to resist and to carve your own path no matter what. And some of us are kind of get a sense of being used to that, or even more used to that edge of like, doesn't matter what people think. I'm not perfect at not caring what people think, but that beautiful communion that happens, or that sense of being able to be appreciated is absolutely sustaining. It really is just wonderful when that happens.
And Richard says, Magus Magnus is an interesting choice of handles, quote unquote, greatest and after a famous assassin. Thank you, Richard. That's kind of a funny, clever quip there. So what role does humor play in your work? Do you have that's kind of an offset question, but a poet should have a little bit of a wit to him, I think, sometimes.
So, and I get pretty intense, so I agree that there's something, but, and I don't know when people analyze humor and things like that, it might not be very funny, but my current work is coming from a very intense place, especially in our times. And here, right in Washington, D.C. area, we're not quite shutting down right now, but Omicron is insane everywhere. In the last, it's happened in 3 days, and all of this, there's a lot of intensity. So my current work, and it's parallel to the Heraclitean work, which was taking an ancient, very esoteric but ancient idea with a poetic approach. I'm examining this idea of the killing joke, and that in and of itself is an examination of jokes and humor. The killing joke is a phrase I became obsessed with, but it's very contemporary. And it's the name of a band. It's also the name of a comic book. So, and it's all based on a Monty Python sketch from the first Monty Python Flying Circus. So at least if I'm taking it really seriously or intensely, the whole idea is like involved in the idea of humor and jokes and laughter, basically in the face of a lot of harsh realities. So the writing itself and some of what it is should come off as kind of funny in a kind of scary way. I do get like that sort of weird laughter in different presentations, and that's all part of it. So definitely the ideas that we're surrounding ourselves with, or the phrase and the concept, are involved in wit and involved in humor and involved in comedy. So.
And thank you again, Carlo. And he says that communication is all too rare today for serious poets. People want their poetry to be spoon-fed. With that said, we're going to take a brief break and we'll come right back with some poetry. Okay. Thank you very much for joining us today, everybody. Keep watching. This is Parrot. Hi, I am Dustin Pickering from Parrot Literary Corner. You know me, your noble and honest host, and I've got exciting news for you. Last anthology, Series 1, The Literary Parrot, did such a great job. We want to continue to provide this community service to our viewers and to our contributors to the program. So please get up and get a copy immediately. You know, if you're in this book, you want to get a copy. If you're not in the book, you want to get a copy and see what we're doing. You want to be excited with us. We want you on this program, and we hope to see you sometime soon on The Literary Parrot. You have to get your hands on this copy. It's amazing. It's an absolutely beautiful anthology meant just for you. Our past guests have been invited back to contribute yet again to this Series 2. We do this quarterly anthology. We will be doing this after our 200 episode milestone. As of this last quarter, we reached 200 episodes, and past that, get up and get a copy immediately. This is the only TV show on earth for creative writers, and our guests are amazing. They're also community activists building from the ground up. This program is for everybody out there who is a creative mind. Order several copies if you can and donate to local libraries. Give them to your friends, cousins, fans, supporters, anybody that you think loves poetry. And it's not just poetry in this book. Remember, this is creative mind. So we have prose, fiction, short stories, essays, artwork, anything you can think of, artistically creative, photographs. Everything in this book is packed. It is packed. It is just absolutely packed. You want to get your hands on it now. Welcome back to the Literary Corner. I'm Dustin Pickering. We have Magus Magnus today, and it's episode 227. If you guys want to hear some poetry, we're in the right place. So, Magus, without further ado, just go ahead and read us a couple of poems of yours, and we'll talk a little bit about them and see what we have as far as your own work and your own philosophy of life.
All right. Well, thank you very much for being here to listen to this. I will read. It came up. I'll read from the manuscript that will become forthcoming when I'm done next year from the Mute Canary. And this manuscript is called The Killing Joke. And I'll read a couple poems. The second one, I think, will at least get addressed into the humor of it. The first one is an ekphrastic poem related to a music video by the band Killing Joke. And the band has been around since the 80s. This contextualizes where the book is coming from during our times. This music video is based on a song called I Am the Virus, and it came out in 2015, which I think is remarkable that it was so prescient. And I wrote it at the time of the first shutdowns, spring 2020. And it's within the context of the book, The Killing Joke. I am the virus, the band Killing Joke. Death, Misery, and Tears, song file released in 2015. Nowadays, contagion worm, I take pleasure where I can find it. So the sound of the word prescience enunciates its lullaby shush like a menacing precious. It doesn't help anyone sleep around here. At least there's science in it. hazardous waste symbol on a banner, official video, not for the conspiracy theory, but for righteous fury. Tilted, boyish clown figure, waxen, ashen smile and forehead bandana, scree, dada, dark wave. Old school determined techniques, rhythms of mind-fucking deliverance, something's gone horribly wrong. Boxed. On the screen, in the YouTube web page, on my laptop screen. Black and white box television with rabbit ears. Gray snow on its screen, in the video frame, on the screen, in the YouTube page, on my laptop screen, boxed. False flags. Furnace bias, titles virus, band name, star spinning wheel. The boy clown cradles in his arms what? Busts? Heads? Lawn gnomes? Or a cast stone Egyptian cat? My grandeur turns on itself, alone with early morning gnawing of cinder blocks.
And that's based on the video from the band Killing Joke.
Right.
I think I remember they're like an 80s sort of industrial, industrial rock group. I think if I remember, I've really listened to a few of their songs in the past. I love how you use the sounds of words in that. And there's some fascinating images and, very visual. It's a very visual poem in a lot of ways and very nice. Thank you for sharing that. Thank
you. Thank you for allowing me and listening. And we'll see. And then this is a few sections later. Again, it's ekphrastic again. And
okay,
not all the work is that way, but I feel like, again, what I'm obsessed with is I'm trying to present something new, the poetic of it, even if we're talking about the little bit of humor. So it's the beginning of the poem that is Monty Python's Flying Circus, Season 1, Episode 1. Killer joke sketch. So funny it kills. Michael Palin plays Ernest Scribbler, the writer of the joke. He dies of great laughter reading his own writing. Announcer. It was obvious that this joke was lethal. No one could read it and live. You slay me, we used to say. When killer was approbative for LA youth in the 80s, my prowl. A raven sits on the rain pipe next to a boarded up window. I'm unaware at the time how much time chances to pass, chance into past. Eric Idle as Ernest's mother, Mrs. Scribbler. Considering how we'll learn that among people who have died laughing in real life, one Mrs. Fitzherbert in 1782, whilst attending John Gay's The Beggar's Opera, couldn't overcome her convulsions of hilarity upon the entrance to the stage of a male actor in drag. The mother of Ernest Scribbler, in raggedy house dress, gasps in shock to find her son fallen, picks up the sheets of paper upon which he scrawled his creation, and can't help reading and chortling and keeling over. Regarding drag and laughter and body language, from the threadbare blue-flowered house dress off the costume department rack, 5 o'clock shadowed man as 5 o'clock shadowed woman, as always with Monty Python, to humorous uses of body and movement, the clutching at the sides, the weaving and rocking back and forth from the torso, chortling unto death. Who's that in pajamas who slumps over the windowsill, arms dangling? Meanwhile, Graham Chapman as Scotland Yard inspector, protective dirges from the men of Q Division don't quite protect. When people die in Monty Python, often their feet pop up from the bottom of the frame, legs kicked high in air, ha ha ha, guffaw, shoes up, down to the ground, John Cleese. I shall enter the house and attempt to remove the joke.
That's both funny, but there's also a lot of sociology there. I think it's like the gestures and the movement, and there's a lot of motion going on, observations of clothing and so forth. And I think anybody can relate to like laughing so hard that it starts to hurt. I think everyone's had that experience at some extent. Yeah. That's quite a poem. Thank you so much, and I'm look forward to seeing the entire vision there presented. And so, tell us, what when is that? What is the expectation? When is that coming out? And you maybe give a shout out to the publisher as well.
Yes, so it was really great that I was writing it for over a year, and then I put out a feeler in, and Jared Schickling, who's the publisher of Delete Press, Echo Linguistics, and the Mute Canary in different configurations, just responded really well, and just said, go for it. And I have that sense that I'm getting just a lot of freedom to pursue this in whatever shape it takes place. I expect to be done by the end of summer, very early fall by next year, based on my pacing and what I still have left to do. And he's said, he's looking forward to receiving it then, and then we'll start looking at putting it out with the Mute Canary, which has some lovely, lovely books in that way. So that sense of what I love about the small presses, which I've worked with regularly, is that sense of artistic freedom that you get. You're in a personal relationship with whatever parameters you have with the editor and the publisher. And that sense that I feel, again, that sense of appreciation from what I sent earlier, and that go ahead, let's do it. And that's really wonderful. And in the meantime, I've developed something that I am excited about, and I started noticing it. My life has been moving from publication to publication, and the in-between times have been really hard. And some people have had blogs in the past and different things like that. In the last number of years, there's been, in the last little while, a lot of journalists have been benefiting from a new format of newsletter blog under what's called Substack. I think that hasn't been fully explored enough by artists and poets. And so I've started my own newsletter Substack, where I'm really excited about that, because it's actually kept me on a writing schedule, even because sometimes I'll just wait for inspiration to happen with even the Killing Joke. But this has kept me really steady and really communicative. It also has sealed those in-between times. Instead of waiting for publication to publication, I'm able to have a continuity of the work I put out there on my own terms. And so that's been really exciting. So I encourage everybody to sign up, it's Magus Magnus, Poetry, Thought, Word Magic on Substack. And it's allowed me the continuity, and it's sort of a project in and of itself, explaining I've written a post on the poetic, which allowed me for the first time to go really deep into that subject you asked in the beginning. A recent post was really popular where I had a recording of some of the work in Heraclitean Pride. And that went out. That was a really intense recording that we made it back about 10 years ago. And it was the best way to present it too. So having that continuity of a project where I'm posting pretty regularly, and then having the ability to know that the Killing Joke's going to come out basically end of next year, early 2023, I think. So I think that's been very exciting on this side.
Excellent. We look forward to that. So, do you write a lot about, your philosophical views on arts as well in your Substack, or is it just like you sharing your works in general? Or
I started in the last couple months, and I anchored it. Part of it was that I want to be able to have some ability to respond to the things that are going on in the world, even though most of my life has been, one of the goals of a writer is to transcend, to overcome contemporaneity and have a more of a historic sense, and even a relation to what is timely and what is timeless. And yet, when times have just gone so outrageous and there's so much grievousness around, I've wanted to respond to that. So the one way it's been set up is to track the anniversary of the election last year and the denial of the election results. And so that's giving me a prompt. That prompt will last till February 13th, the end of the impeachment trial. But within relation to that, I am addressing poetic and philosophical ideas that I am obsessed with, and uncovering those terms and then applying them. The poetic, what is poetry, what is thought, and even word magic. Again, that brings in the energies, I think. Not to over reify it, not to over establish a myth, but to really just know that we are playing with energies in a conscious way, or being conduits for energies in a conscious way. So all that I want to come, I'm hoping that will unfold over time. And again, there are times that other question, there's some of the feedback I get privately and publicly keeps me going. People will write and say, this really mattered to me, this particular entry. And that just is, that benefits both the writing of the Substack, but also the writing of Killing Joke as well, and moving through it. And one thing I did that was really exciting with the Killing Joke was I had several questions for further research. Like, there is going to be a section on people throughout history and even recently who have died laughing. So I said, anybody, you hear anything about that? Send me any information you get. I have a list of people who are known to have died laughing, and people send me about that. And Carlo and Rosalie sent me something just yesterday, and it's all going to end up in the book. So
wow,
and that's exciting. It's a little collaborative in that way.
Sounds like fun and interesting, and it's a poetry, and it's an intriguing experiment as well. So what would your final message be, and do you have any shout outs you'd like to throw out to the world out there watching right now?
So my final message, I do think that when I focus on my own work, I'm a little tunnel vision there, but this overall idea of art and writing and poetry, and even the poetic, it is something that reconciles us or helps us process and deal with life. And so my current obsession with the Killing Joke is, I think times have been hard, and ultimately we have both the example and the attempt at being able to laugh in the dark. So, and that's where I am right now with that. But I even see beyond that, I don't think times will be hard forever. I think that we can look past the pandemic ultimately. And that idea of the poetic and that idea of talking about the muses, getting beyond myth, but going to realities that we can embrace that are the beautiful and the true, and love of the muses. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's an excellent point you're making about the ability of poetry basically to instill peace in people, or instill peace in the community, just by the nature of, the spirit of it, and the way, using language to communicate something bigger than yourself and bigger than, something transcendent really, and something beautiful and transcendent, and bring out bring that to the world, into the world in a way that is, communicates a kind of sense of generosity and peace to people, and brings the community back together and makes it whole again when it's fragmented and distorted as it is right now, in these times of darkness. I appreciate what your work and your efforts. So thank you for joining us, Magus. It's been wonderful speaking with you.
Thank you so much for having me, Dustin. I really enjoyed this conversation.
And me too. Wonderful. I hope you guys will go back and watch that again. And if you haven't missed any of it, just go back and you'll see it on YouTube under our stream section. This has been Parrot Literary Corners, episode 227. Imagine that. That's an amazing amount of episodes for since March of this year. We've been doing this daily. We did take a break for a short period of time, but we are going to continue doing this program in the turn of the year. So just keep watching. And if you'd like to donate, anybody out there can donate whatever they could see fit. We've got paypal.me/nyparrot. That is paypal.me/nyparrot. You see that there on the banner. That's paypal.me/nyparrot to support our programming. And if you want to be on the program, we need guest writers and guest musicians and guest artists of creative minds. You can get in touch with me, Dustin Pickering, at Literary Corner at NewYorkParrot.com. Thank you, Richard, for congratulations for us. I appreciate your viewership, and we hope you help spread the word for our programming, especially spread this one. It's been quite an interesting conversation, episode 227. So, you guys out there, just if you haven't bought a copy of the anthology, it's series 2, The Literary Parrot, number 2, series 2. It'll be out there on Amazon, and series 1 is also available, and that's a wonderful addition to your poetry collection. An international book of poetry and visual art, photography, documenting the times and the spirit of the times, as we've been discussing in this program today. The muse is alive and well and moving through us, and all other energies are, circumspect. So keep an eye out for all the readership out there. And, you guys have a great afternoon. Enjoy this episode again if you would like to. Subscribe. Hi, I am Dustin Pickering from Parrot Literary Corner. You know me, your noble and honest host, and I've got exciting news for you. Last anthology, Series 1, The Literary Parrot, did such a great job. We wanted to continue to provide this community service to our viewers and to our contributors to the program. So please get up and get a copy immediately. If you're in this book, you want to get a copy. If you're not in the book, you want to get a copy and see what we're doing. You want to be excited with us. We want you on this program, and we hope to see you sometime soon on The Literary Parrot. You have to get your hands on this copy. It's amazing. It's an absolutely beautiful anthology meant just for you. Our past guests have been invited back to contribute yet again to this Series 2. We do this quarterly anthology. We will be doing this after our 200 episode milestone. As of this last quarter, we reached 200 episodes, and past that, get up and get a copy immediately. This is the only TV show on earth for creative writers, and our guests are amazing. They're also community activists building from the ground up. This program is for everybody out there who is a creative mind. Order several copies if you can, and donate to local libraries. Give them to your friends, cousins, fans, supporters, anybody that you think loves poetry. And it's not just poetry in this book. Remember, this is creative mind. So we have prose, fiction, short stories, essays, artwork, anything you can think of, artistically creative, photographs. Everything in this book is packed. It is packed. It is just absolutely packed. If you want to get your hands on it now,
listen to the people, listen to humanity, listen to the Parrot TV, Parrot TV, Parrot TV, Parrot TV, Parrot TV, listen to the people, listen to humanity, listen to the Parrot.